In this interview, I speak with Josh Coniglio. He's a financial and wealth advisor at Pacific Capital, and he works exclusively with business owners with $10 million or more in liquid assets. And today, Josh shares his insights on trends driving business sales, the challenges owners face during and after the process, and how his team helps clients navigate the financial and personal aspects of a successful transition. Whether you're planning an exit or you're just curious, you'll take away some great tips from Josh. Let's get started. Josh, thank you so much for being in this conversation with me today. And we are focusing on business owners and business sale today. And I'm just curious what you're seeing with your clients in the last, 3 or 5 years. Like, what's driving them to sell in this, most recent years?
Yeah, it's interesting. We meet people who start businesses for the sole purpose of selling that company, and all the decisions that they make in building the company are really geared toward a sale or an acquisition at some point. Other folks have told us that we're never going to sell, right? Until they get approached by a strategic or maybe a private equity firm. I think the driving factors are stage of life. Typically older business owners that have been doing this for 20 years, that have been in the trenches building their company, they get tired. And then also opportunity, right? Even for those younger people who've built a great company, someone may come knock on the door and offer to acquire them. That usually kicks off a series of events or thoughts where maybe that deal doesn't work out, but now they know somebody wants to buy my company. Maybe there are more, and they start marketing. So it's kind of across the board.
That's interesting. I love that some start with the end in mind, right? And others are just going. Do you see difference in the challenges that they have when they actually then go to sell? Like, is there more attachment with the ones that have,
Yeah,
built their business over time? What do you see as far as challenges?
yeah, absolutely. I think folks that have never really had a purpose or intent of selling their companies are, number one, they're not always set up for the cleanest sale, right? They haven't been gearing things toward a sale, and maybe a lot of their personal life is mixed into the business, and it becomes a little bit more murky when they decide to sell. Whereas people who are building companies to sell them, usually they've got really clean books, they've got patented processes and intellectual property. They're building this thing for a sale. So there's unique challenges for on both sides, I think. But a lot of times, folks that have set out to sell usually have an easier or clearer path to that sale.
And I'd love to focus on the family or the ones that have been building it over for a while. Especially, like, I've noticed with some business owners that I've worked with, they're uncertain, like, how to, one, detangle themselves from the business. But we stay on the financial side first. Also, like, how much do you bring in the partner, the spouse, into that conversation and making those decisions? Because it is sort of entangled. It hasn't been clean. Like, here's our business finances and here's our personal finances. What kind of things do you run into?
Yeah, we see that a lot. A lot of folks, being an entrepreneur allows for a lot of tax advantages, and personal expenses can often get commingled in business expenses that are deductible, those types of things. So that can be challenging. I think for a lot of people as well, you have, when you're building a company, you have this cash flow machine that you're used to, and you're used to this lifestyle of making money. And when you go through that sale, you're basically exchanging this flow of cash flow, this future stream of cash flow that's continuing, for a lump sum. And it causes a lot of people stress sometimes because number one, they've never had that much money as a lump sum. Great example. We had a client sell her company for roughly $35 million, right? She was making about $1 million a year, lived a great life, right? Very elevated lifestyle, high cash flow, but never in her life had she had $35 million in a bank account. And I could see it brought out some stress in her, knowing that, hey, the paychecks are no longer here. This is all I have. And so I think that mindset shift is a challenge. That's a big shift in how you think about wealth and how you think about money.
And I'm curious how you guided her through that as you think about having the lump sum come and then investing that now in a new way, right? Like, I have cash flow, everything's just flowing. And now I have to think more maybe about my investment portfolio and is this going to last me the rest of my life, depending on how old she is? How do you counsel somebody through that piece of it?
Yeah. Great question. So we help educate the client on what's possible with that wealth, and then really dive into their goals on what they want to accomplish. We always want to set protections around those assets in that making sure that their family's secure financially so that they have the option of never returning to work, right? That's a lot of reasons people sell companies, their debt. On the flip side, entrepreneurs have an engine that often doesn't turn off, that they can't turn off. So they're already thinking about building the next business. And so when we build these plans for those types of clients who are going to do it again, we make sure to set aside a portion of assets or a portion of their investment portfolio that's based on providing their family with the cash flow that they need and kind of preserving that piece of it and then saying, okay, this bucket over here is for your next venture or your next business. So it's really about diving into their goals and what they want to do, and then putting together a plan that helps protect their family as well as, scratch that entrepreneurial itch for sure.
One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because at least I think I know, you're known for more customer knowledge, more customer experience, being a bit more intertwined maybe than some other wealth advisors. For example, I had one advisor tell me that they had a client that sold a business and then came to them to ask him about tax breaks. And he was like, oh, a little late now. So tell me a little bit about your process and like, how do you make sure you're getting to the goals, like even when they're owning the business and then transferring those to then post sale, whether they want to keep going or like they're done?
Yeah, so anytime we onboard a client, whether they are just starting a business or they're building a business to sell it, or maybe they're close to selling it, we always go back to goals-based planning. In our industry, I think planning is one of the biggest things that's missed by a lot of financial advisors, especially when you get into the higher net worth. Planning becomes very, very pivotal to everything that you do. So, going back to what their goals are for their family, for their business, for their legacy, and then building a plan for them to reach their goals. Now, a lot of people want to talk about the portfolio, how we're going to manage it, what are the investments, what are your returns? And our answer is always, look, the portfolio is a servant of your plan. And if we don't have a plan guiding those decisions early on, we're not going to be able to do a great job in the actual investment side. So for all those categories of entrepreneurs, building, selling, post sale, we always focus on planning first.
What mistakes do you see them make? For example, you start thinking about selling. At least I think I know this too. 5 years in advance, there's more tax advantages than many people who are like, oh, I got a great offer. I guess I'll just sell and miss out on a lot of those pre-planning sort of
Yeah,
advantages they might have. What kind of things do you see like that?
yeah. A lot of entrepreneurs, they are do-it-yourselfers, and they often will try to navigate a sale and do a lot of the heavy lifting themselves. And we actually had a client do this. They were considering selling their company and they got approached by a private equity firm, and they were doing all the hard work and creating data rooms and helping them through the due diligence process. And during that period, they lost a little bit of touch with their company. They were focused on the wrong things and they got burned out through that sale. And the sale didn't end up closing. So all that effort was kind of for nothing. So that's a big one we see is they don't have a team around them. For all of our clients, even for people who aren't selling, we always look to build a team around every client. So that's your financial advisor, that's us, your family office, right? That's who we are. A tax strategist. There's a difference between a CPA and a tax strategist. We got to make sure they have good proactive strategists. A business attorney and an estate planning attorney. Delegating those responsibilities to the professionals allows the entrepreneur to stay focused on their business, continue to grow their business so that it doesn't fall apart before the sale, and offload a lot of that heavy lifting to people who do it full time.
Yeah, I love that you talk about having the team, right? I think that's part of why I want to do this series is a lot of owners, besides the ones that are doing it as a serial entrepreneurial adventure, a lot of them do it once at one time and they're done and they don't know sort of what they don't know. And to the point of the one person saying, what do I do with my sale proceeds now? And didn't know to go talk to their financial advisor. How do you guys make sure you're inserted into that process with your clients?
Yeah, we really look to be the quarterback of that entire situation. We manage the relationships that the clients have with the attorneys and with the CPAs and with the the business attorney as well. So our goal is to have as many meetings without the client with those professionals as possible. So we're doing a lot of the work in the background and only involving the client when it comes time to making the decisions or laying out the path going forward. So our positioning is, look, we want to be your first call. If you've got a tax question, we want to be that first call. If you've got an estate planning or business law type question, we want to be the first call. And then we can help coordinate with the professionals on how to get that problem solved. And I think that format really helps clients manage their time efficiently. They don't have to decide who handles what. They just come to us. So we're really big on that collaborative planning piece and have a lot of great relationships with those professionals.
It's amazing. I love that you're like that you've positioned yourself as like, you've got a question, call us, like regardless, like even if you're not selling a business, just come to us and let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You mentioned before too, and we've talked a little bit about leaving legacy and wealth transfer. And I'm curious, if you want to compare and contrast the serial entrepreneurs to the family businesses, I would welcome that. But just what do entrepreneurs think about, as they think, 35 million, 100 million? I mean, this is real money, right? Like, how do they make sure their kids are both well taken care of, but also managing it responsibly as well?
Yeah. Great question. So our president founder, Chad Williamson, wrote a book on this called Smart Not Spoiled. And it really comes down to having those money conversations early on. Maybe your kids are older and you've missed that window, but either way, having constructive money conversations as early as possible is always a good thing. When I was growing up, money was kind of a taboo topic in my family. When I would ask, well, how much was that? My parents would never tell me. And so I think a lot of families are like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that having constructive conversations about the value of money, what things cost, and also the hard work that it takes to get that money is super important. Many of our business owner clients are very afraid of ruining their kids because they are wealthy, right? When you have a few $100 million, $250 million net worth, that conversation comes up a lot. And we actually do education sessions with our clients' children to explain simple things like, what is a stock, right? Explain how that works. And then we talk a lot with our clients about legacy and how they want to pass their money to their kids and what kind of control they want to have of that money through their estate plan. So there's a lot to it, but I think early and honest conversations are the key.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of people that you think have traversed that process really well as far as passing on financial knowledge to their children?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it firsthand. Chad himself, he's a very successful entrepreneur. He's runs many companies, and he's got 5 kids. And his oldest, I think, is 20, 21. Youngest is about 9 or 10. And he's been having money conversations with them for years. And one of his middle son was starting a dog walking company. And I have a dog, and Chad said, hey, he wants to come over and pitch his company to you. And so he came over with a flyer, and Chad made him do the whole pitch. And it was really cool to see because Chad doesn't just write about it in his book, his kids actually do it. And it was a legitimate business pitch, and he asked me to hire him, and I did, and he walked my dog. And I think seeing that gives me confidence that it's possible. Teaching your kids about money is possible, and kind of putting them out there. And a lot of the expenses the kids have, if they want a new pair of shoes or this and that, he makes them pay for it with their own money. And obviously he's got resources to handle all of that, but it's been a cool thing to see. I haven't implemented that yet. My kids are young. I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, but it's definitely in the plan. So
He's modeling a good example, right?
and I think for older kids and generations that may be older where you already have a ton of wealth, right? And you've gone through an exit. There's a lot of conversations that we have through our estate planning on, one client, for example, said, I'm not going to give my kids everything, but I'm going to set up what we call family banking, where if you want to start a company and you want to scratch that entrepreneurial itch, I'll help you fund it. And you can take a loan from our family bank and I'll help you along that path. And we're going to learn together. And I thought that was really cool because it's a completely different mentality when you're borrowing from your family and to start a company. And you're not just giving this money and saying, here you go, go spend it. Good luck. So I like that. I thought that was interesting and creative. So
Really creative. I love that. And sort of passes on their wisdom and they get to share the experience at the same time, right? That's cool. Do you have any advice for entrepreneurs, parents whose kids are not maybe entrepreneurial minded and to still pass on? Have your advice, your own advice from the firm or other examples you've seen where it's like, I don't really want to run my own business and still be able to transfer those values?
yeah, a lot of our clients are very charitably inclined, and using charity and using philanthropy to show the impact of what money can do as a tool has been extremely powerful, right? We have a client who takes a family trip every year, a vacation, but half of that vacation is used toward giving back. So maybe they'll fly to, I don't know, some country in the Caribbean, vacation for a part of it, but then part of that they'll go to the local mission and help whatever they're doing, whether it's a food bank or building a school or whatever. And they show their kids, look, we have this wealth and we're able to enjoy nice things, but we also want to they want to show their kids the impact of what that money can do for others. And in those situations, I see that family or they have a really tight knit relationship, and I think that the kids are learning great money principles through that.
Yeah. And getting some experience too with different socioeconomic groups, right,
Exactly.
around the world. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to back up just a little bit and talk about when you're selling the business and thinking about estate planning and how those two come together, because it's not always obvious, I don't think, to every business owner when they sell. So you talked a little bit about philanthropy and how you pass on the money, but I know there's huge tax breaks when you can think about, like, you can really reserve some of those revenues that you're getting from the sale. Can you talk a little bit about how you guide clients through when they're selling, like, hey, here's why you need to think about your estate plan as well?
Yeah. So I would say estate planning is necessary for everyone. Whether you have a business and you're worth $100 million or you are an employee and maybe you don't. And estate plan is important because it allows you to control what happens to your wealth and your legacy after you pass. And it often will stop fights or quarrels between siblings on who gets what. Now, as a business owner, estate planning is super important because number one, there's an estate tax. We have an estate tax in this country to where over a certain amount of your net worth, you're taxed at almost 40% today. So if you run a company that's worth $100 million, and even if you're not selling that company, let's say your kids are going to get that company. When you die, you're going to get an exemption amount. Let's call it $27 million. Every dollar above that's going to be taxed at 40%, right? And if your one asset is your business that's illiquid, and you want to pass that business to your kid, the IRS is going to come wanting cash as their payment. And often it destroys businesses, right? The estate tax on that business and their estate will crush a business from generation to generation. So that's super important. How to get those assets out of your estate through use of creative trusts and trust design. That's extremely important. So a lot of that needs to happen before the sale because the value of companies before a sale is often not as big as what it is through the sale or after the sale. But if you've missed it, it's okay. If you've already sold your company, it's okay. There's still things that can go in place. So yeah, it's a huge part of what we do in our business exit process is making sure they have an estate plan and that we're pushing as many assets out of their taxable estate as possible.
This may be a simple question that is obvious to everybody else and not me, but in that case, would you have a personal estate and also a business estate? Like, are those going together? Can you talk about
Yeah, so if you own a company, that's part of your estate. So in the IRS's eyes, your estate is everything that you own. So if you own a company that's worth $100 million, that $100 million is part of your taxable estate. And so we have a client who runs a very successful company. Their net worth is upwards of $500 million, and they have a second generation business. And their plan is to have the third generation come in and continue to run that company. So through our estate planning process, we knew that we needed to get as much of the ownership of this business out of their estate because if we didn't, there would be a massive tax bill once they pass. And they're getting a little bit older; they're in their 70s. So we used a few different strategies, right? Gifting a lot more of that, the equity and ownership to G3, and then also selling portions of that company, right? And we use some creative trust to push some of those assets out of the estate. So yeah, it's all in your personal estate. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think actually, yeah, the creative trust I want to just mention are creative but legal. Yes.
These are all legal trusts that have been tried and true. There's a lot of things out there though that are in the gray zone that we don't participate in. But yeah, all legal things that are just good strategies that I often say that, tax is never eliminated, it's only deferred. And that holds true even in these trusts, right? If you're not going to pay the tax, your next generation will. So at least you're pushing it to the next one so that they can do planning. And then, it should continue down the line.
And when you talk to clients and their own business owners, like how early do you counsel them to start thinking about the sale and, starting with evaluation and, managing expectations of what the actual sale is going to be and things like that?
I mean, honestly, we only bring up the sale if it's something that may be on the horizon for them. Obviously, if we work with a client who has the goal of selling their company, we'll start that process early, right? We'll start making sure they have the right entity structuring, making sure they have the right ownership agreements, making sure that they've got the right intellectual property in place. We've got an amazing intellectual property firm that comes in and looks at their processes and patents them. They trademark everything, and often those protections will fetch a higher valuation when they go to the marketplace. So we look at those types of things. For folks who haven't talked about a sale or maybe aren't even thinking about a sale, we still go through the standard tax and estate planning, building this team around every client, because I've had people say, "Hey, I'm never selling the company," and then somebody gets out a checkbook and then they sell a company. So we start early and often with those every client.
Yeah. So once they've sold, and this starts to cross into the work that I do, there's often a dip. You think life is going to be great. You've just made millions of dollars. And even though you might be a little afraid if this is going to last me, you're like, I'm just going to ride off into the sunset if you're not a serial entrepreneur. And then maybe a year later, typically is when I work with entrepreneurs. A lot of times they're like, that is not the life I thought it was going to be. I have enough money, but I don't have enough meaning, purpose, fulfillment because I was working so many hours and now I'm not.
Yeah,
How do you counsel clients through that, or do you?
yeah, good question. We absolutely do. So not just with business owners, but even folks who just retire, right? You go from having this identity and this purpose to kind of being a nobody in the sense that you sold the company, you're not running anything anymore. Maybe you retired from a position and you have to kind of reinvent yourself and understand who you're going to be. And so for us, it kind of starts before the sale. When we have conversations with people about selling, we're saying, okay, well, what's next? The sale is the sale, and we're going to get through that. But what's your plan after that? And depending on their personal situation, we always go back to their family, what their values are, what they want to accomplish after this transaction. And again, our clients are entrepreneurs. So a lot of them are talking about the next company, right? The next business they want to build. And often we recommend that they take some time off. You go from grinding hard and getting to that point. We tell them, look, take a year off, travel, enjoy your family. You don't have to jump right back into things. And still, they often still do. So it's just a lot of digging into their values, the values of their family, what they want to do with their money, and kind of building a plan based on that.
And just to push a little bit more on that, I mean, I think a lot of advisors would be like, oh, yeah, we do that too. But I feel like I know from you guys that you are more well rounded. And it seems to be more the exception than the norm to go more than just skin deep on that, right? Where, I mean, obviously you can recommend they go take a year off and they do or they don't. But um, I don't know if you can just speak a little bit deeper to your process of like how you really, if maybe they're not a serial entrepreneur and they are like, ooh, what am I going to do? And like, how are you digging into those values and how is that changing their identity as they transition from business owner to retired or some other version of their identity?
Yeah. Yeah, we often meet with the entire family.
Mhm.
the spouse, the kids, and we talk about what they're passionate about, what makes them tick, and what they want to accomplish as a family. You go from maybe dad was running the company or mom or whoever, right? And now they're home more and maybe they want to travel or maybe they want to give back. We align ourselves with folks who are good people. And many of our clients have big charitable goals that they want to accomplish. So we really dig into that and say, okay, well, being charitable is not just about writing a check, right? It's about making an impact. And maybe that goal becomes more of a boots on the ground type of thing, right? We have a client who was in Honduras last week building schools. He sold his company 2 years ago and he was out there doing it. And so seeing that was really cool because he went from running a really successful business, sold his business for 8 figures, and now he's in these third world countries building schools. So, there isn't really it's not putting everybody into a box of this is what we our process on how we uncover it. It's more of just deep conversations about what's important to that family, and then kind of leaning into it and asking deeper questions based on how they respond.
Curious too, like one of the things I've been doing, and I'm guessing yours too, but like I know you have a vast network, but it's like, okay, I know I want to go do some kind of philanthropic activity, and perhaps this client already knew about the Honduras project or whatnot, but are you also helping them explore new options, things that they maybe hadn't thought of before? Of like, oh, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know I could, I don't know, do micro investments. I'm sure they did, but some kind of different way of looking at life post sale.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a big network on the charitable side of we've got contacts that have resources on what they can do with that money. And then on the investment side and business side as well, we've got a lot of partnerships with firms that, entrepreneurs have have made a lot of money in concentrated investing. What I mean by that is when you start a company and bootstrap it from zero and you sell it for $50 million, you're very inclined to go do that again. So many entrepreneurs are very interested in venture capital, private equity, those types of investments. And so to help them scratch that itch, we have those relationships that say, look, we have these options on who to invest with and what those look like. So yeah, we lean on our network heavily for those types of things.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like with the serial entrepreneurs and they're probably good risk takers and whatnot. I know you mentioned earlier you sort of cordon off some money, if you will, like just to make sure they're not just wildly investing in really cool, fun new projects. Do you have sort of guidance for the entrepreneurs that are like, I want to support them. I've been there before. Here's my money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We see it a lot, right? It's very, in their face because what happens is you sell a company and a lot of people get wind that you sold that company. And a lot of friends and family come out of the woodwork or people you've met and they have a great idea and a great investment in this new company that's going to be the next Tesla, right? And our role in that is to make sure, number one, that their family is taken care of and they've got this base of assets that's tied to their financial plan that allows them to be stress free. Now, part of that will be a bucket for things that we call an opportunistic bucket that says, okay, well, let's put this much money into that bucket that allows you to scratch that itch and jump at those things. But Chad's got a great example of this. He had two clients who sold a company, each deposited 8 figures, same day. They were partners, 50-50 partners, deposited assets. One of the partners jumped at every shiny investment opportunity that they were presented with, right? 100,000 there, a million here, so on and so forth. The other partner stuck with the plan, did some private investments and did some things, but really stuck to the plan. Now, fast forward 15 years, the one partner that followed our plan that stayed within our recommendations is still a client. The other partner is struggling financially, had to sell their home, right? Took way too many risks. So our role in that is really trying to bring them back in and show them, okay, this is the framework that we need to work within, and here's your plan on how to reach your goals.
That's great. I love the way you guys approach it. I've read all of Chad's books, and I just love the holistic approach that you all have. If you had to summarize in 3 words or a short phrase your approach to guiding entrepreneurs in investing, selling, however you want to frame it? What would those 3 words be?
Yeah, I think when I think through, especially entrepreneurs who are selling, I think the words that come to mind are patience, preparation, and then partners. So, being patient through the sale and not finding a great fit partner to sell to, or a great fit sales situation is important. That's going to take patience, right? It's not jumping at the first check that's written. I think having great partners, meaning you have your team around you, your attorneys, your tax people, your financial planner, building that team around you is going to be super, super important. And then preparation, being ready to sell, making sure that your books are clean and that not just on the technical side of the sale, but that emotionally and relationship wise, you're ready to sell too, because you're going to go through a lot of changes through that. So, yeah,
Love it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you.